New York Jets brandish a 4-2 road record. They come into the noisy Metrodome where Minnesota is 3-3 this season. By day's end, one of these teams will be a step closer to the playoffs. The Jets and the Vikings in high definition by Sony. Next. Back at the Metrodome, the New York Jets have won the toss. They have elected to receive. They will get their hands on the football first. That is Justin Miller, who leads the National Football League. 29 yards a return on kickoffs. He has 2 touchdowns returning kickoffs, 99 yards against Cleveland, 103 against Indianapolis. We are underway. Miller from the 10. And out to the 30, maybe the 31-yard line. And Jets quarterback Chad Pennington, 14 touchdowns, 15 interceptions so far this year. 2 outstanding rookie linemen up front, bookending 11-year veteran guard Pete Kendall. And Pennington looks first for Lavernius Coles, who has pulled in 75 passes for more than 900 yards and 5 touchdowns. Our referee today is Bill Vinovich. It is a noisy, as usual, crowd here in Minneapolis. Leon Washington gets the start in the Jet backfield. And we're all anxious to see just how much yardage the Jets can gain on the ground against this fine run defense of the Vikings. Snap. Quick pass over the middle. That's complete across the 40 to 43-yard line to Lavernius Coles. The Minnesota 4-3 defense. 2 huge run stoppers in the middle up front by the name of Williams. Kevin has 5 sacks and a fumble return for a TD. The linebackers, E.J. Henderson just inked a brand new deal extending his stay with the Vikings. Lieber and Harris alongside 3-time Pro Bowler Darren Sharper, the veteran who anchors the secondary from his strong safety position. 1 play, a first down, and Pennington back to work. And he's hit, lost the football, picked up by the Vikings. E.J. Henderson with the recovery.
Well, we talked at the top of the show how Chad had to eliminate some of the mistakes from last week. We see Nick Mangold still down on the ground, but right up the middle, totally untouched comes Napoleon Harris. He gets blocked at the knees by Leon Washington. Chad doesn't see him. He puts a hat right on the ball, and out it comes. When you're a running back, you got to stick him in the chest. You can't go low. He can still hit your quarterback. Welcome back to Minnesota. When you're a running back and you're going to block, you go high. 2 bad things can happen. The guy can hit your quarterback, and you can go into somebody's legs. And that's exactly what Leon Washington does. His guy hits the quarterback, and he goes right into the right leg of Nick Mangold, the center.
From the 34-yard line, Brad Johnson throws, and that's complete. Out of the backfield, Jeff Dugan with the reception. Hasn't been the smoothest of seasons for the 15-year veteran quarterback Brad Johnson, but he has the key experience at the helm at this time of year. A lot of talent on the offensive line. Rookie right tackle Ryan Cook, the 2nd-round pick from New Mexico, gets his first NFL start. And the Vikings get Chester Taylor back at running back. He missed last week with bruised ribs. Taylor is Minnesota's leading rusher.
Oh, come back to you. Come back to you.
On 2nd and 10, this is Taylor. Taylor cuts back to about the 30-yard line, a gain of about 4. It'll be 2nd and 6. The Jets' father figure up front on defense, Kimo von Oelhoffen. 6 years in Cincinnati, 6 more as a Steeler. It's his first season with the Jets. Jonathan Vilma, the Jets' tough and talented middle linebacker, flanked by Eric Barton and Victor Hobson. And in the secondary, Hank Poteet starts at right corner, joining Dyson, Eric Coleman, and Kerry Rhodes in the secondary. 3rd down and 6. And Mwelde Moore, the 3rd down back, is on the field for Minnesota. Comes the blitz. Johnson gets rid of it. Over the middle. Complete to the 5. Touchdown, Vikings. Travis Taylor.
blitz. You end up with single coverage. Andre Dyson was left all alone with Taylor, and Brad Johnson, under tremendous pressure, falling backwards, delivers a really accurate pass. I don't know if Dyson thought he had some safety help in the middle. If he thought he did, he was wrong, because there was nobody home.
Mentioned that key experience he has this time of year paid off well for Brad Johnson. Taylor's second touchdown catch of the year. The kick by Ryan Longwell is good. The turnover turns into points on the board for the Vikings. 12:53 to play in the first. Brad Johnson has the Vikings up 7-0. The Vikings turned a Chad Pennington fumble into a quick 7-0 lead. He has had a propensity recently to cough the ball up. Buffalo's Aaron Schobel gave him a particularly difficult time a week ago. Justin Miller from his 9. To the outside and across the 30 to about the 32 or 33. Roniel Whitaker with the hit. And Pennington comes back onto the field to try to get things back on track for the Jets. Hey, CBS Sportsline Sunday Game Center features lightning-fast scoring of every NFL game. Plus, check out the detailed playoff scenarios with real-time seeding and an exclusive playoff race insider blog. It's all at CBSSportsline.com. Nick Mangold back on the field and ready to snap for Pennington. That's Leon Washington split to the top side of the screen. Pennington throws that way, and that's out of bounds to Jericho Cotchery. Let's go back to the touchdown.
Yeah, Greg, let's take a look at the Jets. Look at this. There is no safety back there. All 11 Jets are up on the line of scrimmage. So Andre Dyson is locked up one-on-one with Travis Taylor. He gives away the inside of the field, and that's just far too easy. Yeah, the pressure was there, and the quarterback made a darn good throw. Brad Johnson put it right there, but you got to tighten it up on the corner if you're going to survive in a blitz.
Brad Smith in the game for the Jets as a receiver. Pennington from the shotgun under pressure and threw it away. Boy, did he get leveled in the backfield.
And again, the pressure comes right up the middle. E.J. Henderson, number 56, is going to come right around. They run a loop. Everybody's occupied at the line of scrimmage. And just at the last second does Chad Pennington get rid of it. Very fortunate. Half second with a Henderson arrival before that, we might have had another fumble.
We mentioned earlier, Chad said last night how nice it is to be healthy this time of year. He can't take this all day. 3rd and 3. Quick hits to the top of the screen. Lavernius Coles, and Coles is right at the first down marker at the 43.
This is going to be really close. The Jets are going to need a good spot. I thought he came up just a hair short.
And we'll get the measurement.
Nick Mangold, very fortunate to be back in there. The Jets are telling us it's a hip injury. You can't speculate as to what might have happened, but Nick, fortunately, is wearing 2 substantial knee braces. And he got hit right on the knee, and he might be very lucky that he was wearing those braces. Smart move on his part.
What did he say last night? You asked him if he'd hit that rookie wall yet. He said sometime during training camp.
He said the 3rd day of training camp. He's a funny guy. They got it. Good deal. Yeah, he's a funny guy. Great sense of humor. Good. And again, you reach that stage as a rookie, and even though he played at a big-time program like Ohio State, you passed the end of your college season a long time ago, and sometimes you're on autopilot. You just get up, you go to work, you go back home. The days go into weeks, and you kind of lose track of time a little bit.
He's the ultimate big brother. Has one sister in college, one sister in high school, one sister in grammar school. Cedric Houston in the backfield for the Jets. 5 offensive plays by the Jets, all passes. This is Houston. That went nowhere in a hurry. Pat Williams, number 94.
This defensive group of the Vikings is very well aware of where they are ranking historically. They have a chance to set the record at the post-merger era, and that is just a horse collar by Pat Williams. Whoa.
2nd and 10. And the Jets spread the field, as we suspect they will do all day long. That one's complete to Brad Smith. Smith has first down yardage and then some down the sideline. Inside the 40 to the 38-yard line of the Vikings. Darren Sharper forced him out.
Well, Lavernius Coles runs a clearing pattern to the inside, and both Viking defenders, watch there on the right, Coles is going to come in, and you see both Vikings are on Coles. That was close to being a pick, but it created a nice opportunity to the outside. Here comes Coles inside, the stutter step, and Brad Smith just waits for the ball. That's a well-run pattern.
Pennington to throw. That one's complete to Lavernius Coles, and Coles is out of bounds at about the 35.
Well, what the Jets are doing right now offensively, I don't think surprises anybody. It's spread the field and let Chad Pennington make smart decisions and try to get the ball downfield throwing it.
We talked with several of the Jets and with Eric Mangini about this last night, Dan. There have been teams that have just flat out given up running the football against the Vikings this season.
There was a good reason for that. Something about butting your head up against the wall.
Pennington on the move, tucks it in, slides down at about the 32-yard line.
Well, that actually goes down as a running play.
For positive yardage.
For positive yardage.
3rd and 3. The Vikings actually held the Detroit Lions to negative yardage one game this year.
His last week, -3 yards. I'd say that's dominating.
Pennington. Out of the backfield is B.J. Askew, and he dives forward to about the 26-yard line. Nice job by Pennington, pulling it down, turning around, finding the open man for the first down.
Well, that was one of the few times that Chad didn't have somebody in his face. He created a little time by moving, and again, those are the smart decisions that you count on Pennington to make.
Inside the 25 to the 23-yard line.
We talked about this defense. Take a look at where they stack up historically. The figure on the right was the great defense of the Ravens the year they won the Super Bowl at 60.6 yards. You have to go all the way back to 1942 and the Bears at 47.2. So at 54.1, and this group is very cognizant of it. They are forging their way towards NFL history if they can maintain this pace.
Stacy Tuff just elevated to the roster from the practice squad last night. Is flanked to the near side of the field for the Jets. Quick pass, that's complete. This is Jericho Cotchery. And this is close to being a first down. I believe it is enough.
Now the one thing, Greg, while we're talking about this Minnesota defense, I want to make the point that a lot of times those numbers can be skewed by how well you play the pass. And the Vikings are 27th in the league against the pass. And so people do have success throwing the ball against Minnesota. And Baltimore, by the way, back in 2000, they were 8th in the league against the pass.
Pennington to throw. That's over the middle. That's complete inside the 10 to about the 6 to Cotchery.
So I think when we got to put it in perspective when we talk about this Minnesota defense. yes, they are really outstanding against the run, but I'm not sure we're ready to anoint them yet as the '85 Bears or the 2000 Ravens or some of the great Pittsburgh or Giants defenses.
Chad told us last night some of your completions against this defense have to be like long handoffs. Get it to a back in space. Houston and tough.
Very solid drive so far.
On 2nd and 1. Houston up the middle to the goal line. Touchdown.
Boy, that's only the 6th time this year that somebody's run the football into the end zone against these Vikings. And Eric Mangini, you're darn right he's happy about that. Great job up front by this Jets offensive line. Cedric Houston doesn't even have contact until he's into 2, and by then he creates his own power and momentum and bowls into the end zone. Outstanding blocking up front.
On to try the extra point is Mike Nugent. His kick is good. 6:20 to play. In the first quarter, Pennington recovers from the initial turnover. The Jets pull even at 7. Back in the Metrodome, first time the Jets had the ball, they had a drive that lasted all of 46 seconds. This time just over 6.5 minutes. 12 plays, 67 yards, and Cedric Houston with his 5th rushing touchdown of the season. There's the speedster Bethel Johnson awaiting the kick. And Johnson from the 9. Trying to turn the corner and is hit and run out of bounds just shy of the 25-yard line by Eric Coleman. 6:13 to play in the first. We're tied at 7, and we're back to the Metrodome after this. Brad Johnson. Thought it was interesting, Dan, you asked him if you could see him in a backup role at some point, and he said, nah, I don't want to go down that road.
He was pretty emphatic about that, wasn't he? He didn't want to entertain that thought at all.
Chester Taylor crosses the 25 to about the 27. Dwayne Robertson, defensive tackle of the Jets in his 4th season out of Kentucky, making the stop. There's big Dwayne.
One thing about a professional player, to really be a professional, you got to be there all the time, and Dwayne Robertson really fills that bill. This guy's started every game for the Jets since he was drafted. That's, you know, you can be a good player, but if you're over on the bench or in the training room, it doesn't work.
And Taylor again. Taylor squirms his way to the 30-yard line. Time for our first NFL Today report from New York. JB.
Hey, Greg and Dan, take a look. Chicago trying to clinch home field throughout. Rex Grossman, little pressure right here, gets it off. Nice hookup, good timing to the tight end, Desmond Clark. Bears up 7-0. Back to Greg Gumbel, Dan Dierdorf.
All right, JB. Dan, is there more of a Jekyll and Hyde quarterback in the National Football League than Rex Grossman?
Well, and how can you be having to create the angst that he creates with Chicago Bears fans?
Instant panic.
They're having this wonderful year, and they're pulling their hair out.
3rd and 4. Mewelde Moore in the backfield. Pass to the near side. That is complete to Travis Taylor, and Taylor is short of a first down. Hank Poteet making the play on the near side.
Well, sometimes as a quarterback, you just have to deliver it to the guy and in hopes that he'll break a tackle to pick up a first down. And in this case, Poteet shows why he came over from the Patriots and why Eric Mangini knows that he wanted him on his team. He's a good, solid tackler, as he illustrated there.
Leon Washington deep to receive this kick from Chris Kluwe. Inside the 5, into the end zone for the touchback. 4:20 to play in the first. 68-yard punt, but they'll start on the 20.
Well, we're tied up at 7. Here's how we got there. It started off with Napoleon Harris coming on a blitz, knocking the ball away from Chad Pennington. On that drive, a touchdown pass to Travis Taylor on single coverage. Put the Vikings up 7-0. Then the Jets came back with a really nice, solid drive. Cedric Houston pounded it in on a rare rushing touchdown against this Vikings defense. And we're knotted up at 7 and still in the first quarter.
From the 20-yard line, the Jets 4 rushing plays for 11 yards, 10 pass plays for 60. Pennington throws near side, complete and out of bounds at the 25-yard line is Lavernius Coles. Eric Mangini said last night he is perfectly happy to put this game in Chad Pennington's hands. He says he's smart, he studies, and he's ready for whatever they throw at him.
Well, and this offense is really perfectly suited for Chad. It's a cerebral offense. It's much like what Peyton Manning does with the Colts. Orchestrates it all from the line of scrimmage. And when you do it all the time, you're comfortable with your hand signals. And quite frankly, being on the road is not the least bit intimidating. You can do it all silently.
2nd and 4. Waits, goes deep, has a man wide open. That's complete to Justin McCarron. Cuts it back across midfield inside the Viking 25 for a first down.
Well, sometimes as a defense, you think that all Chad Pennington will do is dink and dunk. And he will take a shot. And you take a look at that, he just runs right by Cedric Griffin, the rookie. And I don't know if Griffin thought that he had safety help that was right behind him or whatever, but he made it awfully easy on McCarron. He didn't contest it at all.
50-yard pickup on the play. First down, Jets at the Viking 24. Houston. Inside the 20 to the 19. Cedric Houston told us last night he was a speed back when he was in college, and then he went to Tennessee.
Yeah, he said, Philip Fulmer, he broke me of that. I am now a power back. And he said the only way to get anything on this defense is you've got to go north and south. He goes, there are no horizontal yards to be made against Minnesota. That's a pretty good first down run. They just cranked off there at 5 yards. That's extremely successful.
Leon Washington in the backfield now on 2nd and 5. This is Washington in motion to the near side. Pennington over the middle, incomplete. Contact just as he threw the ball, intended for McCarron. It'll be 3rd and 5.
Yeah, I think Udeza was right there in his face. Prohibited Chad from following through. There's Brian Schottenheimer, the first-year offensive coordinator. I said to Chad, what did you think, what was the first thing you thought of when you saw that Brian was going to be the offensive coordinator? Said the first thing went through my mind is, I'm 30 and he's 32. But he said, Brian is an old 32. He's been exposed to a lot of football. I've been very impressed with what he wants to do with this offense.
Pennington, 4th best quarterback in the league on 3rd down conversions. From the shotgun, throws near side, incomplete.
That was a dangerous throw.
That'll bring Nugent and the rest of the field goal unit onto the field. Both Nugent and his Viking counterpart Ryan Longwell were connecting from 50 and 55 yards out pretty regularly during warm-ups. Of course, that's why they call them warm-ups, isn't it?
Well, and that's why kickers love domes. No swirling winds in here.
From 37 yards out. Fumbled at the point of the snap. Graham tried to throw it. The Vikings will have the ball at the 30-yard line.
Well, the snap looked to be a little bit high, and I don't know if that made Graham late in placing the ball for Nugent. The snap was a little higher than he expected.
James Dirth is the long snapper for the Jets.
Watch where the ball gets delivered. You see where he wants it, and then it came up there a little bit in his face. Oh, and then when he sat the ball down, the nose of it slid out from under it. He fielded the ball pretty cleanly, but then when he put it on the field, it slid off the turf and went flat, and Nugent had nothing to kick.
No problem with the snapper on that one. And Eric Mangini sees a chance to grab the lead, go by the boards with 2:19 to play in the first.
Well, I think the high snap took Graham out of his rhythm as far as placing the ball. I don't know if he brought it down so hard that when it hit the turf, it squirted on him. I'm not sure. But it was a little out of ordinary.
From the 19-yard line. Chester Taylor to the 20 and not much more. Dwayne Robertson in on another stop.
To the Jets? The Jets
nope. Officials say the ball is down.
The runner's forward progress will stop. Second down.
Well, you can see that nothing touched the ground, but that is a good call by the officiating crew. The forward progress had been stopped. He'd been picked up and carried backwards when the ball was stripped and came out.
2nd and 8. Comes the blitz. Johnson got rid of it. Complete to the 25-yard line to tight end Jermaine Wiggins, the one-time New England Patriot and Carolina Panther.
Let's go back and look at that botched field goal one more time. The snap, you'd like it to be lower, but he fields it cleanly. But then when he puts it down, watch the nose of the ball. It just slides out from under him. It's like Graham didn't have a firm enough grip on the ball, and when he put it on the ground, the nose of it just kind of slid sideways, and Nugent really had no target. He couldn't even attempt to follow through and try to make contact with that.
Under a minute to play in the first quarter. Johnson from the shotgun on 3rd and 3, running out of time. Eludes one, can't elude the second tackler, and goes down. Victor Hobson with his 5th sack of the season.
Well, pretty nice job of escaping the first time around by Brad Johnson. He gets away from Greg Ellis. Ellis has both hands on him. Pretty good escapability by Brad, but then he has nowhere to go. Victor Hobson sealed off the outside. That was a good job by the Jets of not following one another, but going upfield in lanes.
Now on the kick. Deion Washington to about the 44 with 17 seconds to play in the first quarter. And here comes Chad Pennington again. Had a pretty good idea last night he'd be working out of the shotgun most of the day.
But I'll say this for the Jets, they've had some success running the football. They cranked off a 5-yarder on a first down in the last drive. Houston got it in, running the ball, and so I think they've got I think this offensive line might be thinking to themselves, hey, wait a minute. This might not be the impenetrable wall that maybe we think it is. Maybe we can root these guys out of here a little bit. The pass is clearly setting up the run, and you don't want to go away from that.
Askew out of the backfield, across midfield, into Viking territory, and the final seconds will not tick off. We have a penalty marker down. Bill Vinovich, our referee.
I think I saw a face mask at the end of this. And which one is it going to be?
Personal foul. Face mask. Defense. 15-yard penalty. Automatic. First down.
Well, Bill Vinovich does not call out the offender, but it's Ben Lieber, the outside linebacker, and you can see he not only grabbed it, but he held on and almost pulled him all the way to the ground. The former Charger, enjoying his first year here in Minnesota, and yes, you see that graphic, something that very much galls Brad Childress, that they lead the league in penalties.
We come to the end of the first quarter. We're tied at 7. We're back to Minnesota after this. You're watching the NFL on CBS.
Woo! You're watching CBS!
Let's go now! And is hit, lost the football, picked up by the Vikings. Over the middle, complete to the 5, touchdown Vikings. Listening to a little music by Prince. If there's anything more purple in the state of Minnesota than the Vikings, it's Prince, who will perform at halftime of the Super Bowl down in Miami. First down as we start the second quarter. The Jets at the Minnesota 32. On the ground, Cedric Houston. Houston for a couple to the 31.
I like the way that Houston keeps his pad level down. What did he tell us? He said, I like contact. I really do. I don't look to make anybody miss. I have no problems heading straight on into somebody and initiating the contact. He certainly did on that run.
We kind of looked at him to wait to see if he was going to laugh. He go, oh gosh, he's serious.
That immediately made us suspect.
2nd and 8. Play fake this time. Pennington throws across the middle. That's complete inside the 20 to Lavernius Coles to the 16 and a first down.
I love the way Lavernius Coles fights for yardage after he makes the catch. You know, it's just a simple little clearing pattern across the middle. He's going to make himself a target working underneath the zone. But look at the way he fights afterwards. 2 spins, fighting for yardage. That's what makes Lavernius Coles one of the most dangerous yards after the catch receivers in the NFL.
5 catches, 40 yards on the day for Coles. Jets with 9 first downs to Minnesota's 1. Pennington throws far side, complete to Cotchery. And maybe a 1-yard pickup to the 15.
Well, you can certainly see that a lot of these passes by Pennington really are nothing more than exaggerated handoffs in this quote-unquote West Coast offense that the Jets are running, but it's just perfectly suited for Chad. But as he showed earlier in taking the shot downfield and connecting, he's not afraid to go long. McCarron's ran a good route, got wide open. You got a nice job of mixing it up so far by the Jets.
Brad Smith, one of the receivers, as Pennington spreads the field. Smith now in motion. Quick pass. This is Coles, and that's going nowhere.
Yeah, that whole thing was predicated on Brad Smith getting a block out on the edge on E.J. Henderson, and he just wasn't able to pull it off. This is a quick screen. You saw Smith go out to the right in motion. Well, right there, Smith is trying to get that block, and he's just not able to do it. And Henderson, who the Vikings just signed to a new long-term deal this week, gets an ankle tackle. Excellent work by the outside plugger.
3rd and 10. Pennington, quick pass. Oh, look at the move by Lavernius Coles, and he is close to a first down.
How special was that move? Keep in mind, you are anticipating being hit and hit hard the minute you make the catch. But look at the awareness by Coles, realizing there was a soft spot back to the inside, doing the spin. And he is in a twirling mode here so far, early on in this game. Twice on this series. He's going to be getting dizzy if he keeps this up.
From here, he looks to be just short of a first down. Keep in mind, however, that I've been wrong before.
Well, not this time. Well, Eric Mangini, who has gambled before in situations like this, looks like he's going to go for the field goal.
Last time the Jets tried this at the other end of the field, everything went awry when the place down by Graham wasn't good.
Well, you just got to put that, out of your mind. And it's a pretty good strategy to come in here and put them back out on the field, because if they execute this, if they have to do one late in a game, hey, it's already put to bed. Yesterday's memory.
From 25 yards out. This time everything works well and the kick is good. 11:39 to play, first half. The Jets grab a 10-7 lead at Minnesota. After the fumble on the opening possession, the Jets have scored a touchdown and a field goal sandwiched between one possession in which the ball went over on downs. 11:39 to play in the first half, and the Jets with a 3-point lead, set to kick it off. There is Bethel Johnson. And Johnson will rein this one into 3. Just across the 20, and here's a penalty marker. Came in fairly late, thrown by the referee, Bill Vinovich.
During the return, illegal block in the back. Receiving team number 20. At the distance of the goal, Minnesota keeps the ball. First down.
So that will back the Vikings up a bit deeper into their own field position. 11:33 to play in the first half. We're coming back to the Metrodome after this. That's Kimo von Oelhoffen. I called him the father figure to that front four at the beginning of the day. Boy, the other three are pretty good. Brian Thomas, Dwayne Robertson, and Sean Ellis. This is Chester Taylor. Penalty marker flies as Taylor works his way across the 15 to the 17-yard line. Let's check the flag.
Certain amount of credibility that comes when you have a Super Bowl ring.
Holding. Offense number 62. After this is the goal. Repeat first down.
That's the rookie Ryan Cook.
It wasn't very long ago that we put up the graphic about the Vikings leading the NFL in penalties. And since we put it up, they've had two more. One on the kickoff return and now that. Adding to, they're just trying to pad their lead.
3 of them so far today. R2 Pinner, who registered 125 yards and 3 touchdowns last week in relief of Chester Taylor, makes his first appearance of the day in the backfield. 1st and 16. This is Pinner. Tries the left side behind a really talented left side of the offensive line. Steve Hutchinson and Bryant McKinney.
Oh, and there's another flag thrown. The Jets had a hold of Pinner, dragging him backwards. I don't know if that had anything to do with.
After the play was over, personal foul. Defense number 22. Flow to the head. 15-yard penalty. Automatic. First down.
That's Justin Miller, and that's not going to please Eric Mangini at all.
No, he got an earful on his way. And it's a smart move on Miller's part to keep right on going. I don't know what he's arguing, but he gave back the Minnesota penalty. They were nice enough to back themselves up, and the Jets in turn let him off the hook.
First down now at the 23. Johnson with time running out. And down he goes, courtesy of C.J. Mosley, a one-time draft pick by the Minnesota Vikings, who went to the Jets in the trade for Brooks Bollinger.
Well, Brad Johnson just trying to buy himself some time. He goes back, plants, can't find anybody. Then when he steps up, then there's just nothing there. Mosley comes up the middle. All right, let's check out Steve Hutchinson, number 76. Got a double team going, and he just plants Kimo von Oelhoffen. But the double team on von Oelhoffen meant there was nobody to pick up Mosley coming up the middle. Like you can say that von Oelhoffen kind of sacrificed himself for the cause.
Johnson gonna go deep, far side of the field, incomplete.
Well, good coverage there by Hank Poteet.
Pass intended for Billy McMullen. It'll be 3rd and 17.
Well, that's just perfect coverage by Poteet. They're just hip to hip. Now you see, that's how you play a deep route. When you know you don't have safety help, looks back at just the right time. It helps to have the same speed as the receiver, though. Billy McMullen, I don't think, is a guy that's going to run away from anybody.
Brad Johnson's first incomplete pass of the day. He's now 4 out of 5 and looking at 3rd and long. Mewelde Moore back onto the field in the backfield for Minnesota. Johnson got rid of it. Across the 20, Jermaine Wiggins to about the 23. That's going to be well short of a first down. And
well, this crowd is not going to cut Brad Johnson any slack at all. He's in a really precarious position. He's 38 years old. His 15th year in the National Football League. So obviously he's not the quarterback of the future. And this franchise's crowd here is just a little impatient. They know Tavares Jackson is the guy in the wings, and they'd like him sooner rather than later.
Leon Washington from his own 35 returns to about the 39. We have 9.5 minutes to play at the Metrodome. Jets with the football and a 3-point lead. You've seen them walk the red carpet, now see them walk the beat. Watch what happens when real celebrities become real cops, armed and famous, coming in January to CBS. There's a look at Tavares Jackson He is the second-round draft pick out of Alabama State and is considered the quarterback of the future. In fact, just a week and a half ago or so, there was serious talk about him possibly being the starter in place of Brad Johnson.
Well, Brad Childress went the entire week without naming a starter, even though Jackson, after Wednesday's practice, kind of let the cat out of the bag by saying Brad Johnson was going to start the game in Detroit. Brad Childress, not the most forthcoming guy with information to the local press.
On first down. Wolves penalty marker, movement up front.
Well, Kevin Williams was certainly in the Jets backfield. Whether he was invited or not, we'll find out.
Offsides. Defense number 93. Unabated the quarterback. 5-yard penalty. Still first down.
Brad Childress made the point, particularly pre-snap penalties.
Well, there's not a coach in the league that isn't tortured by pre-snap penalties.
But Coach Childress particularly so.
Well, yeah. Well, they're the penalties that result from a lack of focus, from a lack of concentration, and a lack of discipline. 3 things that winning teams all possess. You must have those 3 elements. If you start to slack, it shows up in pre-snap penalties.
On first down and 5. Quick pop over the middle. That's Houston out of the backfield across the 45 to the 46. Ben Lieber made the stop, and Pennington continues to connect on his throws at a pretty comfortable rate.
Well, when you're going to throw short passes like this, you can't be a 50% passer. You better be 70% or better in a game like this, especially if you're going to pass up on the run. And certainly that's what Chad has done so far.
Houston and Askew again on 2nd and 3. Houston left in the backfield. Ben Lieber, number 51.
Well, there's one of those runs that goes for nothing or maybe even negative yardage, something the Vikings do really well. Ben Lieber, it's a run blitz. He just crashes the left guard gap, totally unaccounted for. You can see the lead blocker is headed the other direction. B.J. Askew, no way he can spin and come all the way back to the backside gap.
3rd and 5. Here come the Vikings. Pass this side. Oh, what a pitch and catch for the Jets, and that's complete to Jericho Cotchery for a first down.
Boy, what a perfect throw by Chad Pennington on what was really, really good coverage. Watch how tight this has to be. Antoine Winfield is sitting right there underneath, and that ball is delivered about an inch or 2 beyond the fingertips of Winfield. That was a high-risk, high-reward pass by Pennington.
He comes up big on 3rd down. That was a 17-yard gain. First down, Jets at the Viking 40. Fake to Houston. Over the middle. Got his man, Lavernius Coles. Inside the 25 to the 23. Another first down for New York.
Well, again, you're starting to see a little bit why this is the 27th ranked pass defense in the NFL. There are holes. And how nice is that spiral from Chad Pennington? But Coles found a soft spot in the zone. And these 2 receivers, Coles and Cotchery, what a duo.
Here's Houston to the 21.
And you say, well, why are they still running the football? Well, keep in mind, that last completion to Coles was a really nice play action pass by Pennington. If you're not going to run it at all, I don't think you need to be a brain surgeon to figure out that play action kind of loses a little bit of its pizzazz.
I thought it was interesting, Dan, you asked Chad the difference between the offense this year and last year, and we've seen it a lot today. A lot of motion, a lot of different sets.
A lot of motion, a lot of movement. It helps him get some pre-snap reads. It's just one of the big changes that Brian Schottenheimer brought to this offense.
And we get a whistle and a timeout. Timeout Jets. 6:25 to play. First half. Chad Pennington having himself one efficient day with 17 of 20 for 193 yards, and his wide receiver duo contributing mightily.
Well, no surprise, they've been his go-to guys all year.
Second and 8. Plenty of time. Pennington on the move and just throws it away outside the tackle box. Allowed to do that. It'll be 3rd and 8.
And very smart. And the Jets had time, 2 backs in the backfield, and they're there to help protect. So you got a limited number of guys working downfield, and so your options are reduced. And smart job by Chad of just dumping.
I want to go back to what we were just talking about a moment ago. Pennington says a lot of movement pre-snap. It doesn't allow the defense to focus in on anything in particular. They're still trying to figure things out right up until the snap of the ball. Big 3rd and 8 here for the Jets. Pennington going to go deep for Coles. Caught it, touchdown. Vikings want to call for a push-off.
I thought it looked to me around the 5-yard line or the 4-yard line that Coles really did push off. He's working on Fred Smoot right there. Right there. It's tough to see from that angle, but you can see Coles had his right hand on the chest of Smoot, and he's firmly secured that football.
There's the arm extension there. Coles comes down with it for the score.
You really didn't see Smoot get shoved backwards that much. You didn't see much of a reaction in his upper torso, but I've seen less than that called as a push-off.
For Lavernius Coles, touchdown catch number 6 on the year, and number 15 for Pennington.
Great job by Chad, though, of identifying the single coverage and putting the ball where his guy can make a play.
Nugent's kick is perfect. 6:12 to play. In the first half, Chad Pennington celebrates a 17-7 lead. Welcome back to the Metrodome. 6:12 to play in the first half, and Chad Pennington just thrown his 15th touchdown pass of the season. Bethel Johnson for the Vikings takes the kick at his own 3. Squeezes across the 25 to the 26-yard line. Let's go back to that touchdown pass.
Well, supposedly, if you're a receiver and you extend your arm against the body, and right there, Lavernius Coles came awfully close to a full extension of his right arm. Look at it right there. That pretty much is a classic push-off. That is pretty much a classic push-off, but yet Lavernius Coles, no flag, a touchdown, and Coles is having himself a Pro Bowl year.
86 yards today, over 1,000 for the season. And we have penalty markers on the field.
Ball start. Offense number 75. 5-yard penalty, still first down.
That's Mike Rosenthal, the veteran offensive lineman out of Notre Dame, and yet another pre-snap penalty call against Minnesota.
And pre-snap penalties, first of all, inexcusable. At home, doubly inexcusable. There's no crowd noise at all. For an offensive lineman to be jumping off sides in your home park is really, well, it's a tough sell to a coach. They don't want to hear it.
1st and 15 now from the 21. This is Chester Taylor. And not much there. You know, we talked about this crowd being a little antsy. How antsy would they be, Dan, if they were aware the Vikings have garnered all of 2 first downs today on offense?
Well, it's been a really good performance so far by the Jets defensively. I think Bob Sutton has got his guys executing a pretty good game plan. That time Sean Ellis at the bottom with a tackle. There's Sutton, who works from the sideline. Again, pretty much an all-new staff for Eric Mangini.
On 2nd and 11, they're going to keep it on the ground. Look at Dwayne Robertson again. Big number 63, teaming with Hank Poteet for the stop.
You know, you feel good about a guy like Sutton who gets a shot at the defensive coordinator's job. You know, 6 years he's a linebacker coach, and now he gets to be the guy in charge. And again, that's just nice work. Poteet at the bottom, Robertson at the top. You know, Sutton, one of those guys, he has worked at his craft for quite a while, and now he gets to be an opportunity to be the defensive coordinator. I wonder if every day he looks at Eric Mangini and goes, man, you're just a kid.
On 3rd and 9, Johnson steps up, throws deep down the sideline, and this one is incomplete. Pass is intended for Bethel Johnson, and Andre Dyson was there to cover, and here come the boos again.
Well, it's one thing if you're not executing on offense because you're being completely throttled by the defense. But so far today, the Vikings are making more than their fair share of mistakes, and that's got the crowd uneasy.
Still only 2 first downs on offense for the Vikings. Leon Washington beat for the kick. Washington from the 24 reverses field a couple of times and breaks free up the middle to the 35. Midfield, cuts it back and inside the 40-yard line of the Minnesota Vikings.
Well, right now, if you look at the energy being brought to the table by these two teams, both of whom are fighting for their playoff lives, it's clear that the guys from New York are the ones who brought their A game and are playing this game at a much higher level. On offense, on defense, and now clearly on special teams with that return by Leon Washington.
39 yards on the return gives Pennington and the offense terrific field position at the Viking 38.
And that fumble by Chad Pennington that led to a quick Minnesota 7-0 lead right now to everybody in the Metrodome seems like a long time ago.
Houston and Askew in the backfield. Pennington to throw, going to go deep. Down the sideline, it is incomplete through the hands of Justin McCarron.
Again, Chad identified the single coverage, threw it over the outside shoulder. He just threw it a little too far over the outside shoulder. Going after the rookie Cedric Griffin. And again, look.
Dan, is that arm extension taut?
Well, I don't know, because Justin McCarron just took a page out of Lavernius Cole's playbook. And again, getting the right hand in on the chest of the corner.
25 passes thrown already today by Chad Pennington. They averaged 29.9 on the season. This is Askew. And that's Spencer Johnson on the stop in the middle.
I know one thing, when the officials head inside at halftime, they may be getting a phone call from Mike Pereira that says, hey, maybe we ought to pay a little closer attention down the sidelines on whether there are any potential push-offs or not.
Yeah, you might add your name to that phone call list, too.
No. What, I'm going to call him?
No. No, he may call you. Under 4 minutes to play here in the first half.
I still get worried they're going to call me for holding.
3rd and 10. Pennington out of trouble. Throws complete to the tight end, Chris Baker, and Baker corralled at about the 34, 33-yard line. That'll be short of first down.
And Chris Baker, who hasn't been a big part of the offense today from a passing standpoint, I'm sure is thinking, hey, thanks a lot.
And Mike Nugent is going to come on and attempt a pretty hefty field goal here.
Ooh, this is going to be like 50, 52, 53 yards.
We mentioned earlier, both these kickers were connecting pretty regularly from about 53 yards out. 54 is his season and career high. This from 52 yards. On its way. And good.
Well, there was a delayed reaction. That was a rather cavalier call by the official under the goalpost.
Mike Nugent from 52 yards out. Looked like it was going to fade for a bit, but it stayed inside, cleared the crossbar.
crossed the crossbar handily. Look at the distance he had on this. Look at that. That ball goes up into the screen.
That's a 63-yarder, Dan.
That might have been good from another 7, 8 to 10 yards. You're right.
So the New York Jets have scored on their last 3 possessions with 2:48 to play. Here in the first half, they have a 20-7 lead.
Well, if this was basketball, Leon Washington would get an assist on that field goal because of that kickoff return.
You know, we've talked about the playoff situation. Neither of these teams would be eliminated by a loss, but you don't want to lose today.
But
you don't want to lose today.
Your odds grow very, very long for the loser of this game.
Leon Washington back there with a smile on his face. Bethel Johnson deep for the kick. He's been doing this a lot. Johnson from the 6. Tries to come in near side and comes up to about the 25-yard line where he's brought down. We remind you, you can get the latest scores, stats, and highlights from around the league on your mobile phone. You can access it all by going to NFL.com and clicking on NFL Mobile.
Now, Greg, your point about the playoffs, it says something about the state of things in the NFC that the Vikings, if they lose this game, go to 6-8 and are not eliminated from the playoffs with 2 games remaining.
We could very well see an 8-8 team make the playoffs out of the NFC. From the 25-yard line, Johnson throwing near side, a perfect pass caught by Travis Taylor. The Jets with 227 total yards today to 55 for the Vikings.
Yeah, the Vikings ought to be trying to move with a little alacrity here. They're kind of taking their time in the huddle, and I would be trying to get something on this board before halftime.
2nd and 2. Let's see what Johnson does. He's going to throw for it. Throwing far side, incomplete, and tripped up on the play is Richard Owens, the tight end. Kerry Rhodes covering him, and there's no flag.
Well, that's classic incidental contact, at least in the eyes of the officials.
Minute 59 to play. We get the 2-minute warning. We're back to the Metrodome after this. Look at the playoff picture in the AFC. Should the Jets win today, it would pull them into a tie with either Cincinnati if they should lose against Indianapolis on Monday night, or Jacksonville if they should lose to Tennessee, although they're leading the Titans currently at 10-7.
You saw New England, though, they're at 9-4. They're winning 20-0. If they win and the Jets lose, they win the East.
3rd down, Johnson crossing pattern complete across the 40 to the 43 is Troy Williamson. That's a 1st down. Clock moving with a minute 50 to play, and Minnesota with all 3 of its timeouts available.
So, you know, the Patriots and their fans are Vikings fans today, and it's not really working out for them very much here in the first half.
And now the clock stops at a minute 49. And the Vikings take their first timeout. While we have the opportunity coming up on the Sprint Halftime Report. Join JB, Dan, Shannon, and Boomer with all the latest NFL scores and highlights, all coming up on the Sprint Halftime Report. Eric Mangini talking things over with 2 pretty key members of his defense. While we have a moment, let's check the NFC playoff picture. And well, we talk about how almost everybody is in the hunt. How about Green Bay?
Can that be possible down there?
Sure.
The 2 teams at 5 and 8 still get to be called in the hunt.
Once again, Chicago is the elite team in the NFC after surrendering that position at various times to New Orleans, the Giants early on, and Dallas.
They say they're the elite team, and their record indicates that, but there aren't many teams playing better football right now than Dallas. That hiccup against New Orleans beside the point.
Pass is caught on the far side, eventually by Troy Williamson.
Wow.
But he is short of a first down.
Troy Williamson, a receiver, their #1 draft choice a year ago, a guy who was actually inactive earlier this year because he had a real problem holding on to the football.
Like that?
Yes. He allows the football to hit his body before his hands. And that's a position right there. A receiver needs to make a hands catch, not a body catch.
Johnson, another crossing pattern identical to a few moments ago. Billy McMullen stays in bounds, the ruling is, at the 31-yard line. And a timeout with 66 seconds to play.
And that timeout will leave the Vikings with only one. Nice pass, though, by Brad Johnson. Laying it right out in front where McMullen can catch it in stride. And I don't know how you ruled him in bounds. How do you, as the official on that sideline, not say that he was out of bounds?
I saw a call on Monday night, Dan, where a player was never touched when out of bounds, and they kept the clock winding.
Boy, does his knee touch down in bounds?
No, it didn't.
I don't. Boy, that's a harsh call there. You can see the winding motion that the clock is still running.
And if you're sitting at home and you're saying, what's the big deal? The big deal is the Vikings had to burn a timeout.
That, you might say, is nitpicking along the sidelines.
Minnesota's longest drive of the day, 44 yards. From the Jet 31, Johnson, incomplete. Clock stops with 1:02 to play. That one looked like it might have been tipped.
Oh, it had to be tipped by somebody. I don't think all of a sudden Brad Johnson lost all his arm strength. Let's take it. Kerry Rhodes is coming in off the edge right there, 25. And Rhodes is the guy that jumps up. Looks like he gets some of the fingers on his right hand on the ball.
2nd and 10.
Hard to have a much better year than that guy's having for the Jets.
You bet. Kerry Rhodes has 4 interceptions, 4 sacks. Johnson, pump fakes, going down the far sideline. It is caught. No, out of bounds. Troy Williamson on the receiving end. Eric Smith covering. But Smith was late getting over.
Eric Smith, well, I don't think he ever knew where the ball was. He never turned around, but he timed it perfectly as far as getting up and getting in the way and maybe even touching the ball. He doesn't know where it is, and that he's reading Williamson's face as to when to elevate, and without seeing the ball, Eric Smith got right in the middle of things.
He did a great job. The rookie out of Michigan State. 3rd and 10. Johnson over the middle, incomplete. A little bit behind Billy McMullen.
And there's our guy Eric Smith again. Smith that time with the really tight coverage and got there exactly when the ball did. There he is right in the middle of your picture, 33. He sees the crossing pattern coming. Can't do it any better.
So Ryan Longwell will try to do well long here.
You've been waiting all day to do that.
From about 49 yards out. Kick is on the way, and that's going to be wide right. .46 seconds to play in the first half, and the drive to come up on the scoreboard falls short for Minnesota. So Pennington has 46 seconds with which to work. He's had an interesting day.
Well, yeah, it started off really poorly when he gets hit on the blitz and they give up a touchdown, but then he starts throwing the ball all over the field to Kotry, to Coles. Then he gets Justin McCarron's in the act with the long ball down the sideline. He's going to let everybody play. But then it's the touchdown here to Lavernius Coles when he gets away with a bit of a push-off. And after that start that spotted Minnesota a 7-0 lead, Chad's been spot on.
Here's the handoff to Leon Washington. And Washington to about the 44. How's this for what Chad Pennington's accomplished so far today? It's a Minnesota defense that allows 19.3 points a game. That's 9th best in the NFL. Jets have 20 on the board. And they use their second timeout.
Well, and the Jets wisely so, after the long field goal that they've already gotten from Nugent, decide why not try to get into position. And look at Chad when he plays inside. Now, obviously, this is spread out over his entire career, 3 games in the Dome, but still kind of an interesting stat. 8 touchdowns, 1 interception, and a pretty lofty rating. And again, it was nice to talk to Chad yesterday, and he's had such tough luck with the 2 surgeries, the broken wrist, to actually, knock on wood, but to be healthy for an entire football season, something that not his everyday occurrence.
And something that of which he is much more appreciative. 2nd and 5. Each team down to 1 timeout now. Pennington, good protection, throws, that's complete to Baker. And Baker across midfield to about the 46. Clock continues to move as the Jets save their last timeout for a possible Nugent field goal attempt.
And you can see they got about 12 yards to go to get him down to that target line.
Pennington throws, Baker again inside the 35 to the 33. And now he wants to spike the football. Coming up on 10 seconds to play. And he spikes it with 8 seconds on the clock.
And boy, he would have loved to have had 10 seconds, because with that timeout, you can still run a play and get the ball stopped, get the clock stopped in a hurry. But you can't, you don't have much time. You don't have time to do like a deep crossing pattern. You can't run a play like that and get the clock stopped in 8 seconds. Unless you might get lucky and get it with 1. Are you willing to take that chance?
Let's see what he can get accomplished with 8 seconds here.
Whatever this is, it's not going to involve Chad holding the ball for very long.
Come on now, EJ.
Still plenty of time on the play clock. Quick pass to Baker inside the 30 to the 27. Timeout with 4 seconds on the clock.
That was nicely done by the Jets. It had to involve an immediate delivery from Pennington, and you bought yourself 5 yards. He gets rid of that ball in a second. Everybody from Minnesota was backed off. I think that was a mistake defensively. You realize there's no way that he's going to go downfield with much of anything. I would have had my defense up on the line of scrimmage pressing the issue.
The flip side of things, if you want to be cynical about it, is that when we saw Mike Nugent connect on a long 52-yarder, he made one from about 65 yards, and maybe the 5 yards doesn't make that much difference to him.
Well, it's not every day you see a 52-yarder that he puts up in the screen. You expect those things to like gently drop over the crossbar, not get driven into the screen in front of the fans.
This one still comes from a challenging 46 yards away. On the way.
Challenging to who?
That's exactly right. After a tough go-round on the first field goal attempt, the Jets have recovered nicely, don't you think?
Well, I think that right there was a drive that really showed how confident the Jets are in moving the football.
Boos raining down, 23-7 Jets at halftime. We're back with the Sprint Halftime Report after this message and a word from your local station. You're watching the NFL on CBS, the home of Super Bowl 41. Back in Minneapolis, a look at the first half statistics. That Minnesota run defense has lived up to advanced billing, but it doesn't do any good if no one else holds up their end of the bargain, and the Vikings find themselves short 23-7.
Praise the Jets defense, because they have completely throttled the Minnesota offense, holding them to only 91 yards in this game, and the time of possession favors the Jets by a landslide. And what's significant about that is that that's what the Vikings do to other people. Nearly 6 minutes advantage they have over the course of the season. So you can't play much better than the Jets have played, with the exception of the one mistake early that cost them 7 points. Since then, they've been flawless.
In recapping the first half, it's been a much more interesting half for the Jets than it has been for Minnesota.
Boy, isn't that the truth? It has really been. Chad Pennington has enjoyed the good work by his receivers, both Coles, Kotchery, McCarron. But then again, this defense has just been all over Brad Johnson. Minnesota hasn't been able to run the ball. And again, it's Chad spreading the ball around to everybody. McCarron's has gotten in on the act, but predominantly his go-to guys, Lavernius Coles and Jericho Cotchery.
And the Vikings will have a chance to get their hands on the football first as we get the second half underway. Halftime festivities is long-time terrific Minnesota Viking Randall McDaniel added to the Ring of Honor here in the Metrodome.
Well, that's the first of a number of honors that Randall McDaniel will be collecting before long. He'll be getting a phone call in the not-too-distant future that he's going to be elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio.
12-time Pro Bowler.
There is the name that they just unveiled, and it's Viking Alumni Day. A lot of the old guys back here to honor Randall, and it's just a shame that the hometown team didn't get the fans in a more festive mood prior to the halftime ceremony.
This is Troy Williamson from the 11. 25 across the 30 to about the 33. Pretty good field position for the offense. As Brad Johnson comes back onto the field. And you can hear the boos.
A chorus of boos. And those are directed directly at number 14. This crowd is, I think, pretty obviously saying they'd like to see a change at quarterback. I think we've all been around enough to know that that doesn't necessarily make things better, but sometimes it does.
Brad Johnson certainly has been around long enough to be accustomed to the way things go in this game. The handoff for Chester Taylor. Taylor across the 35 to the 37.
Well, Brad Childress is very upfront in saying that he went with Brad Johnson as his quarterback this year because he thought Brad Johnson was the best choice to take his team to the playoffs, not a rookie. I think everyone agrees that Tavares Jackson is the quarterback of the future. But as you can see, he's got his chin strap buckled up. A lot of backup quarterbacks are wearing baseball hats, and if they've got a helmet, they're carrying it, not wearing it.
Taylor again left side, first down and then some. Close to midfield, it is midfield and a first down. Eric Coleman dragged him down.
Well, if you want to get better play at your quarterback position, that's one of the ways to do it. Have some semblance of a running game. And this is the first time Steve Hutchinson gets out in front and gets a nice block for Chester Taylor. He gets a first down running behind the $50 million left guard.
What did Brad Johnson say? Steve Hutchinson's arrival brought a little nastiness to the offensive line.
Well, and Brad Childress was telling us that too, and saying that you got a guy like John Runyon did in Philadelphia, a mean streak.
3 straight runs left side. This time the Jets corral this one. Kerry Rhodes coming up.
There's Steve Hutchinson, a guy that is in just his 6th year, but already 3 Pro Bowls, 2 AP All-Pro teams, and was such a fixture on the left side for the Seattle Seahawks, playing next to Walter Jones. And now you see number 74 right there, Bryant McKinney. He's going to be the beneficiary of playing next to a talent like this. This guy is a road grader. He can pull, he can run. He has no weaknesses in his game at all. He is an All-Pro.
On 2nd and 8, they're going to stay on the ground. You know, Hutchinson, it was interesting to just sit there, and he wasn't bragging. He was just saying it matter-of-factly. He says that it is interesting and important to break the guy's will on the other side of the line when he just doesn't want to play anymore.
Well, sometimes it really is that basic. Here he is pulling around, trying to just do a little fold block where McKinney gets his guy. He loops around to the outside, puts a block on another Eric Barton, the guy from Maryland. Almost gave Barton Victor Hobson's credit for being from Michigan. But that was a really good job by Barton. He fought through the block and made the play.
Brad Johnson gets rid of it in a hurry and throws behind his intended receiver, McMullen, on the far side of the field. And on 4th down, they'll have to kick it away.
And that is a timing pattern, the ball thrown to a spot. And again, hard to tell in a situation like that. Your immediate reaction is to say, well, that was a bad throw by the quarterback. That also could have been a poor route from the receiver. That's impossible to tell.
barely got it away. Washington, fair catch at the 13. And that's where the Jets will take possession. 12:08 to play, third quarter. Eric Mangini trying to steer the New York Jets to the playoffs in his first year as a head coach in the National Football League. Pennington begins from his own 14-yard line. Far side of the field, that's complete. This is Coles, and Coles out of bounds a couple of yards short of a first down. Cedric Griffin, the rookie cornerback, on him there. And, you know, in talking with Mangini, the big problem with the Jets has been inconsistency this year. But he says week after week, they go at things exactly the same way, same routine, whether you come off a win or whether you come off a victory or a loss.
He's a big believer of living in the moment. Good or bad, shed it in a hurry and move on.
On 2nd and 2, this is Cedric Houston. Penalty markers fly.
How about one of those pre-snap deals? Here we go again. The Vikings guilty of an offsides.
Offsides. Defense number 93. 5-yard penalty results in a first down.
You know, Brad Childress was about ready to bite the head off of a rabbit yesterday at the Prospect. How's he holding up today?
Well, I'm sure he's struggling to maintain composure. That's what a head coach tries to do. I can tell you right now, I wouldn't be able to do it. Headsets would go flying, fists would be pounding. I just, pre-snap penalties are, especially in a game that has as much importance as this.
You get upset when they get the dinner order wrong.
Well, some things are more serious than others.
On first down. Houston with room to run on the right side, out across the 35 to the 36-yard line.
And again, this is just a perfect illustration of a passing game setting up the running game. Get a good block here. Pete Kendall comes around the corner. B.J. Askew out in front. That is just really, really good blocking. And then Cedric Houston with the power finishes it off.
2nd and 2. Cedric Houston at him. He squeezes through for the first down across the 40 to the 41.
Boy, this is some demonstration by the Jets offense. Again, I touched on it in the first half that when you just looked at the energy level, when you looked at the I want this more than you mentality of this game, two teams that are really in identical positions, both fighting for their playoff lives. I don't think there's any question the Jets have brought more to the table today than have the Vikings.
35 rushing yards against that run defense so far. On first down, Pennington going to keep it on the ground and maybe a yard on the play. Leon Washington.
I know that's not a whole lot of yards, but the quality of those yards to this point have been very, very good ones. They've gotten a couple good runs on first down that have made some manageable second downs.
Actually, you're saying it's not a whole lot of yards, but the Detroit Lions are going, how are they rushing for all those yards against the Vikings?
I know. It seems hard you're bragging about somebody that has 35 yards rushing in the third quarter.
2nd and 8. With time and throws complete inside the 45-yard line to Coles, who is having a huge day on the receiving end.
Well, first of all, Lavernius Coles is catching everything that's anywhere near him, but he's running great routes. But look, because they ran the ball successfully for 3 straight times, then he's able to come back and get good time in the pocket. Chad has all the time in the world to survey the field. And again, working against this Viking zone, over the first level, Ben Lieber leaped and couldn't get it, and in front of the safeties.
500 catches for his career, 10 today for 108 yards, and the touchdown. This is Houston. And although it was Steve Hutchinson talking about exercising one's will on the opposition, that's what the Jets line is doing right now.
And again, with two rookies in there, D'Brickashaw Ferguson at left tackle, Nick Mangold at center. And early in the game, it looked like the Jets might have lost Mangold as he got hit in the lower leg, but he was back the next series. Clement, Moore, Kendall, these guys, yeoman's work today.
Short drop, little pump fake. Now throwing up the seam, incomplete. Pass intended for Jericho Cotchery, and Cedric Griffin closed on the play.
Now the rookie from Texas has been having a busy afternoon. And he landed awkwardly. He looked like he hurt himself a little bit when he landed. Chad was looking to the right side before he came back, and he actually did not lead Jericho Cotchery with that ball. If he puts that ball where Cotchery can run and get it, that would have been a completion. But he hung it up a little bit. Griffin able to make a play.
Big 3rd and 7 here for the Viking defense.
Chad's got to take a timeout.
Play clock winding down on him. Pennington exercises a timeout. We'll take a break. $7:46 to play. Merry Christmas to you, right, too. $7:46 to play in the third. 3rd and 7 for the Jets. Pennington throwing far side of the field. That is, oh, what a catch by Lavernius Coles.
Coles was so wide open. He must have thought that ball took forever to get there. And how close did Darren Sharper come? Watch when he breaks off this pattern. Look how open he is. He has to wait for the ball, and it just beats the hands of Darren Sharper. But look how Coles didn't wait for the body, the ball to come to his body. He reached out with his hands and snatched it out of the air ahead of Darren Sharper. That was beautiful.
128 yards receiving for Coles today. Here's Leon Washington trying the left side and brought down behind the 20-yard line. 6:50 to play in the third. This is the 5th drive of 45 or more yards put together by the Jets today, as you look at offensive coordinator Brian Schottenheimer.
Well, he is smoking. Of course, it helps to be the offensive coordinator when you're getting the execution that you're getting from Pennington, your receivers, your offensive line, and everybody else out there on the field. These guys aren't even bobbling balls, much less dropping them.
Loss of 1 on the play, 2nd and 11. Pennington throwing, incomplete. That's the newcomer, Stacy Tuff.
That's when you're really confident in your game plan, when you throw to a guy that just got activated yesterday. Stacy Tutt, this guy comes off the practice squad and gets a ball thrown his way during the game.
3rd and 11. 11th play on this drive.
When you factor in they got a lead, these are the kind of plays that win drives.
Gonna loft it inside the 5 to Justin McCarron, and just out of bounds, short of the goal line.
And Chad Pennington can do no wrong at all. And Chad wants to get up here and run this ball before we get a review to find out whether or not McCarron's had both feet in bounds. That's pretty easy. Chad was running his guys up there. There's no need to hurry.
1st and goal.
Nobody's going to challenge that.
Houston spins, but comes up short of the goal line. It'll be 2nd and goal.
And we have seen some open receivers in this Minnesota backfield. That was just an outstanding hit by middle linebacker Napoleon Harris. He just really tattooed Cedric Houston on that.
Pennington spreads the field on 2nd and goal, and now Houston and Askew join him in the backfield. Houston, nothing doing. Big Pat Williams, 6'3", 317 pounds.
Now, Minnesota had a good goal line stand last week in their win over the Lions. Well, they've tried it twice now. Mangini and Schottenheimer's bunch. Do you give it a third shot?
I was going to say, are you stubborn?
Talk about a multiple shift. Yeah, I think that was one shift too many.
Pennington ran out of time to shift. Second timeout burned by the Jets. Playoff fortunes riding now on almost every big play. The Vikings trying to make a stand at their own 2-yard line.
I tell you what offensive linemen want to do in this situation: run the football. You hate to get stuffed twice, and then you hear that play call come in for a pass. It's like we weren't good enough to get it done.
Pennington on 3rd and goal. Throws, end zone. It is incomplete. Intended for Jericho Cotchery. Couldn't stay in bounds.
Yeah, with where that ball was, I don't see any way Cotchery could have caught the ball and gotten both feet down in bounds. The ball was too high, too outside. That was a physical impossibility.
So on comes Mike Nugent for what will be a 20-yard field goal attempt.
And if he makes this, it forces Minnesota to score 3 touchdowns to take the lead.
From 20 yards, Nugent is good. 5 straight possessions the Jets have scored and lead 26-7. 4 minutes, 27 seconds to play here in the 3rd quarter. And Mike Nugent, 4 out of 4 in field goal attempts today. Set to kick it away. Bethel Johnson stands at his own 2-yard line for the Vikings, who are in need of points on the board. Across the 20 and knocked out of bounds at about the 23-yard line. Let's see who's going to come out and quarterback the Vikings. It's Brad Johnson. The fans don't like it. That's Tavares Jackson, the rookie quarterback out of Alabama State, the one who is the fan choice right now with the frustrating offensive output the Vikings have shown so far today. But Brad Johnson is back in at quarterback. Going to throw far side as a man, and that is Troy Williamson out of bounds, a yard shy of the first down.
Well, the Jets defense today has just been throttling the Vikings. Sean Ellis almost gets him, and Victor Hobson cleans it up. Again, pressure is mowed over by Mosley. Then we get Dwayne Robertson in on the act. This front four from the Jets has been very active. 5 first downs in this game for the Vikings. They have yet to visit the red zone, and 112 total yards.
This is Chester Taylor. That's going nowhere. Corralled at the 30-yard line by Brian Thomas. After the turnover, Pennington fumbled, and they took advantage for the Johnson touchdown pass. Minnesota has punted 5 times and missed a field goal.
I think maybe these guys from the Jets maybe got tired of reading all week about this vaunted Minnesota defense.
They actually had a healthy respect for it, though. What did Chad Pennington say? It's ridiculous. They're giving up that those few yards rushing.
Well, you notice they didn't come out in the I formation and try to pound it at him.
Johnson running out of time and goes down.
Eric Barton, the first guy there. And again, it's pressure right up the middle. Brad Johnson goes through a play-action fake, goes back, sets. Now he had time to throw the ball. Obviously found nobody. First Barton, then Robertson, and he's just smothered.
Third sack of Brad Johnson by the Jets today.
Geez, and after a promising play on first down where they pick up almost 9 yards, they can't even convert that.
Here's Leon Washington. Fair catch at the 35-yard line. Dan, you know what tonight is? Survivor
Sunday night.
Survivor Sunday on CBS. After 60 minutes, the final challenge is the final vote and the final twists that'll make this Survivor finale unlike any other, followed by the live reunion. That's tonight here on CBS, America's #1 network.
Did you ever think about signing up for that?
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to see you survive.
Couldn't get me to the airport fast enough. We have a penalty marker on the field.
March off against the Jets.
Back it up 10 yards to the 25-yard line. And this one's not worthy of a call.
Well, Bill Vinovich electing to keep it to himself.
Yeah, when it came time to vote as to who was going to leave the island, I'd raise my hand. I'll go.
You're not supposed to volunteer.
Sleeping on pines is not for me. See how the Jets go about taking some time off the clock here. Brandon Moore, number 65. There is Tavares Jackson throwing on the sideline.
Offense number 65. 5-yard penalty. Still first down.
Well, that's a kind of a penalty that during a Jets practice would earn you running a lap after practice.
Trip around the field.
Yep. Eric Mangini has officials out there every day at practice, and if you commit some sort of a penalty, it gets notched in the little spiral notebook, and you owe him a certain number of laps after practice. I can tell you one thing, that's one way to get guys to maintain focus while you're out on the practice field.
1st and 15.
There was another flinch.
You bet, it's against the Jets.
False start. Offense number 68. 5-yard penalty. Still first down.
You know, this is the best offense the Vikings have had all day.
And the bad part, and what's making Mangini upset, the crowd's not even into the game. They're not even making any noise. Those were what you would call in tennis unforced errors.
Tavares Jackson continues to throw on the sideline for Minnesota. 1st and 20. Pennington hitting Askew out of the backfield, and he's hit almost immediately by Dwight Smith.
Hey, Dwight Smith, give it a rest. It was one good tackle. But the Vikings, who haven't shown much life, this is a little.
Second and 20.
The official saying, hey, go ahead and show a little exuberance, but don't step on the other guy.
We have markers flying. And Bill Vinovich going to tell us about it.
False start. Offense number 88. 5-yard penalty. Still second down.
Wow, I don't know if we're keeping track of these kind of records, but 3 pre-snap penalties in what, the last 4 plays? The four attempted plays, statistically only 1 has been run.
Just remember, the fair catch was made at the 35-yard line. They're now at their own 10. 2nd and 25, Cedric Houston. You saw Brad Johnson on the sideline just a little while ago. Jackson appears to have finished throwing. There's Brad. Is that the look of a man who knows he's not going back into the game?
No, but that might be the look of a guy who's close to going in a game. It's hard to read Brad in his facial expressions, because that's also the look of a guy that things just aren't going very well. And they've been going miserably for Brad and the Minnesota offense all day.
3rd and 22. Houston, running room, right side, 25, across the 30 to the 32. That'll be about 3 yards short of a first down.
I will say this about Tavares Jackson. He's down on the sideline running sprints in an attempt to loosen up his legs. I think he's going to come in. And this was really close to being converted for a first down. Jackson was giving every indication in the way that he was loosening up on the Minnesota sideline that he's going to come in.
And in fact, he's grabbed his helmet now. Mewelde Moore deep for the kick. Fair catch. Now he let it bounce. And this is going to come to a stop inside the 15 at about the 11-yard line. And 55-yard punt by Ben Graham. 60 yards rushing against that Minnesota defense today. That's an accomplishment, and the cheers you hear are for Tavares Jackson.
He hasn't left yet, but here he comes.
We brought up this very subject with Brad Childress yesterday morning.
Well, again, he said Brad Johnson is my guy. I thought he gave us the best chance to win. Clearly in dire straits with just a little over 15 minutes left to go. I don't blame him at all for making the change. See what the kid can do.
Going to throw, first time out. That's complete to Troy Williamson, and that's a first down across the 20 to the 24-yard line. Last 15 seconds of the third quarter winding down.
And there are two guys right there involved in that play that are going to be the future of the franchise.
We come to the end of the third quarter with our score. The Jets 26, the Vikings 7. Back to Minnesota after this message and a word from your local station. You're watching the NFL on CBS. Pennington going to go deep for Coles. Caught it, touchdown.
Touchdown, Jets.
Back for the start of the fourth quarter. Dan Deerdorf, Greg Gumbel, and our CBS Sports crew. Best wishes for a happy holiday season to all of you. From all of us, Brad Johnson on the sideline, 10 of 17, 96 yards and a touchdown, 110 total yards under his command today. Tavares Jackson at quarterback. And we get movement up front, and it's going to be against the Vikings. This is a bad, old repeat of a song for Brad Childress.
Offense number 62. 5-yard penalty, still first down.
The rookie, Ryan Cook, right tackle.
Even when Rosenthal replaced him at right tackle, he had a false start as well. And again, Brad Childress just can't understand why his team is so penalty prone. You know when you're leading the league, you know that's a point of emphasis during practice. And at home, in front of a silent crowd, you still jump.
7 of them for 46 yards today. Jackson on the run and throws it away.
Who you know, he fought every urge to try to make something happen by throwing that thing back into the middle of the field towards a receiver, and he did the smart thing and take advantage of the rule outside the pocket, dump it.
On Monday morning, a coach will go, good job.
That's exactly right. You know he's just trying to make something happen. You got to fight every instinct to try to do too much if you're Tavares Jackson.
Not a whole lot of experience coming in. 6'2", 232 pounds, second-round draft pick. Had only thrown 4 passes coming into today, completed 3 of them. Now looks at a 2nd and 15. Straight drop, throws, complete to the 30-yard line. That's Billy McMullen, and he'll have third and about 5.
And in that situation, the Jets were giving some ground. They're sitting back in his zone right now. They're going to try to see if maybe they can throw some coverages at Jackson and try to confuse him a little bit. One of the things you like to do with a young quarterback is pressure him, but that also means you give Jackson the chance to get out and make a big play with his legs.
He needs the 35 for a first down.
Here comes that blitz.
Pump fake, gonna go deep. That is caught and dropped incomplete. Troy Williamson had it, couldn't hold on. And Hank Poteet fighting him all the way.
Well, again, Jackson identified where he had single coverage. He got a matchup. He's got actually Williamson this time doing a pretty good job of trying to push off and get a little separation, but give all sorts of credit to Hank Poteet. His right hand was always between the two arms of Williamson, had a hand on the football, and was there far enough to knock it away.
Leon Washington deep for the kick. Washington lets it bounce, and it's going to bounce out of bounds inside the Jet 25-yard line. Williamson, Poteet doing battle. Poteet wins. As we asked rhetorically, how was the coronation? We welcome you back to the Metrodome. First down for the Jets. The ball at their own 23-yard line. 13:57 to play in the fourth quarter. Jets have run the ball 20 times, thrown it 38 times. Make it 39. Flipping it out to Houston. And Houston in the middle of a huge collision. Ray Edwards, the rookie defensive end out of Purdue, was in the middle of that.
And we've got a Jet that's still down on the ground. This is actually a backward pass as Chad flips it backwards. But Houston, starting at 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, had a lot of purple shirts in front of it.
Near the hold down.
13:40 to play in the fourth quarter. Pennington with a 2nd and 10. And Pennington to throw. Over the middle. That's complete. Across the 35 to the 37. First down. Lavernius Coles again as the Jets look to close in on a wild card spot. These are the main contenders, Dan.
Well, there's Kansas City. You can see they've got a poor conference record. That really works against them. Denver has not exactly been on a tear lately, but Buffalo has 4-2 in their last 6 games. And I'm impressed with the Jets in a situation like this, protecting a lead. They're going to do what they came here to do, and that's have Chad throw the football.
Buffalo.
And Lavernius Coles, Greg, how can you be having much better of a day?
Yeah, Buffalo, incidentally, winning against the Miami Dolphins. There is a penalty marker or two. Not an unusual sight today.
False start. Offense number 74. Snap infraction. 5-yard penalty. Still first down.
Chad Pennington has registered a career high in passing yardage today. 325 of them, and his last completion to Lavernius Coles gives Coles a tie for his career high with 12 catches on the day.
And look at that, 28 out of 37. Only 9 incomplete passes. Extremely efficient by Chad Pennington.
1st and 15. This is Cedric Houston. Not much there. Now, some of the other teams in the running for the AFC wildcard include the Steelers.
Yeah, they're leading Carolina in an early game. I think there's the defensive MVP of the season, Jason Taylor. And Tennessee right now is leading Jacksonville. They've got a 1-touchdown lead now over the Jaguars.
How about the job Jeff Fisher has done as head coach of the Titans again this season?
Well, how about that team ever since Vince Young took over at quarterback? Whoa.
2nd and 14. Pennington running for his life, slides down across the 35 to the 36. Overview of the AFC. This is just looking for the wild card. Cincinnati plays Monday night against the Colts. Jacksonville trailing Tennessee. The Jets winning here. Kansas City and Denver right up there with them, and then Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Miami, and the Titans.
Kansas City and San Diego play tonight. Cincinnati and Indianapolis play tomorrow night. The Jets finish up at Miami and hosting the Raiders at home.
3rd and 12. Pennington gets good protection, throws over the middle, and has his man near midfield, Jericho Cotchery, for a first down.
And you just can't let Chad stand back there. A great look of him looking left, trying to find somebody to the left side. Watch Chad. He's going to look to the left. He's working the left side and then has time to come all the way back to the right and end up in the middle. Chad's initial is to go to the left, and he's got all sorts of time to survey the entire field and come back to Jericho Cotchery. No pressure at all.
Cotchery, 7 catches, 56 yards. On first down, Cedric Houston upended in the backfield by number 56, E.J. Henderson.
Well, that's just a great illustration of a linebacker shooting the gap and selling out. E.J. Henderson knifes through, and he makes contact a good 2 yards in the Jets' backfield.
Such an impressive offensive display today. You know, fans, Dan, are going to say, why can't you do this every week?
Well, if only it was that easy.
Yeah.
But throwing the ball against the Vikings isn't that hard to do.
On 2nd and 14, it's Houston again. And not a whole lot across midfield to about the 48 of the Vikings. Clock continues to move, 9:20 to play in the 4th.
Eric Mangini, though, he had this Jets team ready to play. He has learned a lot in a brief period of time. Only 35 years old. His approach, I know, is irritating maybe to some, but let me tell you something. He's got a vision. He's got an idea of how to do it, and that's the way it's going to be done. He's not going to waver.
Pennington running out of time and is down at his own 42.
Now finally some pressure by the Vikings. Take a good look at it. You can see they just come with 5, but the pocket just totally collapses. Ray Edwards crashes in from one of the corners, Mitchell from the other one, and Chad being very cautious with the football. Whatever you do, take a sack, don't turn it over.
Jets owners of the best record in the league against punt returns. They've allowed 154 punt return yards. That's the best in the NFL coming in today. That's a bad kick. At least not as good as Ben Graham would have liked it.
No, you were right the first time. That's a bad kick.
Hey, next Sunday, it's a hand-picked doubleheader for you. Playoff implications abound. The Patriots tangle with the Jaguars, the Ravens rumble with the Steelers, and then the Bengals battle the Broncos, or San Diego takes on Seattle. Check your local listings. It all begins with JB, Dan, Shannon, and Boomer on the NFL Today.
Oh, it's a fun time of year, isn't it?
More than just a couple of New York Jet fans. Jackson back at quarterback. From the shotgun, throws out here into the flat. That's complete to Moore and Moore out of bounds across the 30 to about the 32-yard line. Dan, I'd be very surprised if this whole thing is not going to be said and done, playoff picture, until the final week of the season.
No, absolutely not. In both conferences. Although you seem to have a pretty clear delineation of teams that you think to yourself that can win a Super Bowl versus those that are just going to get into the playoffs. I think there's a wide margin there.
On 2nd and 7, Jackson throws. That's complete to midfield. Across midfield, Troy Williamson, first down at the Jets' 41.5.
And again, there's two guys that have to be the face of this franchise in the future. Williamson, just a second-year guy, but their #1 pick last year, 7th overall pick. And now the guy you would, if you're a Viking fan, you hope is going to be the quarterback of the future, Tarvaris Jackson.
22-yard pickup on that play. First down, Minnesota. Jackson throwing this side, incomplete. Travis Taylor on the near side of the field. It'll be 2nd and 10.
Well, you got to wonder right now if the score of this game holds up and the Jets go on and win, does Brad Childress leave Tarvaris Jackson in for the balance of the season? Because technically, the Vikings, even with a loss today, aren't eliminated.
Still alive.
Their record drops to 6-8, but remarkably, even at 6-8, somehow you're mathematically not out of it. It doesn't seem right. You ought to be.
Right.
Jackson handles the low snap. That's complete. Troy Williamson to the Jet 35.
I think he actually got far enough to get the first down on a good effort after the catch. A bad snap. Jackson had to go down and get it, and then with a guy in his face, he delivered a high ball, but Williamson did a good job going and getting it and converting.
And actually, Jackson has something that Johnson hadn't been able to do, get these fans cheering. On the rush, the screen. That's complete to Moore. Moore, 25, 20, still on his feet, inside the 10 to the 5. Did he get there? Touchdown. What an effort by Mueldy Moore.
What a job by Tarvaris Jackson of getting him the football. Falling backwards. You can't coach this, folks. Jackson just stepping backwards, flipped a real nice, soft, catchable ball to Mueldy Moore, and you're right. This was superb after the catch. Already hit and falling backwards, Jackson still got it away. They're going to go for 2 to try to make it an 11-point game, which makes it a 2-score game. A touchdown, 2-pointer, and a field goal.
Mueldy Moore's first touchdown of the season. Tarvaris Jackson's first touchdown pass of his career.
Thank you, Jason.
Jackson had it batted down at the line of scrimmage. Is that Dwayne Robertson? Dwayne Robertson has had a monster game on defense for the Jets today. 6:15 to play. The Jets with a 26-13 lead, and the Jets fully expecting an onside kick. The Vikings running out of time. There is special teams coach Mike Westhoff of the Jets. See what the Vikings and Ryan Longwell are thinking.
Well, the Jets have their hands team out on the field.
Pops it off the turf, picked up by the Jets. Penalty marker is down. Chris Baker pulled it in. And stop me if you've heard this one before, but this looks like another penalty against the Vikings.
Offsides. Kicking team number 12. 5-yard penalty from the spot of recovery. New York keeps the ball. First down.
Well, just an attempt to get a head start on trying to recover the football. They nabbed Billy McMullen. But the Jets recovered. And now let's see if they can kill a little time with a couple first downs. Although they're actually within Nugent field goal range right now already. The way he's been driving the ball.
First down, Jets at the Minnesota 30. And I imagine Cedric Houston will get a little work here on the ground. Houston slipped as he got underway. Lost ground. Jets have 2 games left in the regular season.
They're going to go south and meet Miami down in Florida, and then they come back home on New Year's Eve rather, and host the Raiders. The Raiders jockeying with Detroit to see who's the worst team in the league.
And you know, with Miami losing to Buffalo today, we have to stop saying teams stumbled against the Bills. The Bills are kind of making believers out of people. Pennington. Penalty marker flies. That'll be a hold on the Jets. I thought I saw a jersey stretched about 1.5 miles.
Pete Kendall, the left guard, got whiffed. And that's what's called a knee-jerk reaction. He just reached out and attempted to grab a guy by his jersey.
I don't know who the Viking was, but his jersey has to be at least 2 sizes larger now.
Holding. Offense number 66. 10-yard penalty. Repeat second down.
Well, second one in there on the left. He just gets, actually Kevin Williams goes right around him. Unfortunately, he didn't hold him well enough to keep him from burying his quarterback. If you're going to do something obvious, tackle the guy and at least stop him short of hitting your QB.
Do linemen ever think it's not obvious?
Well, a lot of times it isn't obvious, but if you're going to keep the object's to keep your quarterback from getting hit, hey, just tackle the guy.
When it's that far out in the open, it has to be obvious.
You know it's going to get called.
2nd and 23. Pennington. Intercepted. Napoleon Harris. Back to the 26-yard line. Ball goes over to Minnesota.
Oh, and the Jets have somebody hurt.
That's Lavernius Coles.
And all of a sudden, having a lead in a game isn't as important as it used to be.
Let's first check what happened to Lavernius Coles.
All right, there you see Lavernius Coles. Oh, and he gets sandwiched in between 2 linebackers, Ben Lieber and E.J. Henderson. There's Henderson, and then Lieber hits him right in the ribs. And there is Chad. He gets hit just as he throws the ball. The ball sails on him. It gets tipped by Sharper first, and then right to Harris. So multiple bad things for the Jets happened on this play.
Coles is still down. For Pennington, that's his 7th interception in the last 5 games.
And that interception's because of pressure. Chad got hit throwing the ball, but boy, you could really see that Lavernius Coles had his ribs exposed, and Ben Lieber inadvertently hit him right in the side.
We have 4:53 to play.
Not many good things happen to either the quarterback or the receiver when the ball sails on the quarterback. There's the first one, and then right there, and I'm going to take back the inadvertent part I said. Lieber looked like he hit him on purpose. Certainly legal, but that's, yeah, I take it, but that was not an accident. He had a shot at him and he took it.
Well, we'll see if Coles' day is over, but this is, if he doesn't come back, this is the reason why.
Right. And at that point in time, Lieber's a blocker. he knows his guy is returning the football, so he's going to put a block on Coles and take him out of the play.
Meanwhile, first down for the Vikings at their own 26-yard line. That's Ben Lieber.
Finds himself in a curious spot.
Tavares
He's
Jackson.
a free agent from San Diego. Not a bad time to be with San Diego.
Tavares Jackson has 95 total yards under his belt in about 10 minutes of play. Brad Johnson only managed 110. Jackson got it away. This is more and more down at the 25-yard line, courtesy of Jonathan Vilma.
Well, for receivers, we have yards after contact. With this guy now, we're going to have to start a new category, completions after contact. He got hit on the touchdown pass to Moore. He got hit on that one and ended up with a completion.
This time he has time, throws the screen. And to the 30-yard line, Moore again. Brought down by Brian Thomas.
Well, all of a sudden now, if Minnesota can get themselves down the field, regardless how much time they take, and get a touchdown out of this, all of a sudden that onside kick that'll follow that's going to have a lot of people in New York anxious.
On the slant, that one falls incomplete, intended for Williamson. And Andre Dyson was there to break it up.
And now with a fourth down, you've got to go for it. You can't punt this thing away.
4th and 6 at the 30.
Ball at the 30-yard line. Jackson needs to reach the 36 for a first down and keep things alive for Minnesota.
Whatever this play is, it had a lot of components to it. It took him a good 5 seconds to call it.
Jackson on the run. Has a first down, slides down at the 40, first down Minnesota.
Now just good, smart football, and what I liked about it as far as Jackson was concerned, decisive. The minute he saw the opening, he was gone. There was no delay in that decision. But here he has taken a while to get his team set at the line of scrimmage, and a lot of times running off the clock.
Jackson, a bump, complete, inside the 35 to the 30-yard line to Travis Taylor.
Ooh, the Jets went way back in a soft cover 2 zone. What a hole they gave Minnesota underneath.
Brad Childress called Tavares Jackson a great competitor and said he wasn't bogged down at all by all the verbiage thrown at him, even in training camp.
Boy, the Jets played that awfully loosely.
Jackson, incomplete at the 10. Williamson, his intended receiver, stops the clock with 2:46 to play. So Childress talking to Jackson again.
Well, I think it's pretty obvious after the way this club has responded to Tavares Jackson being in the lineup that the Jackson era has officially begun.
That'll be the first question for Brad Childress after this game.
Well, he's got some spark in this offense.
Over the middle. That's complete. Inside the 20 to the 19 is Richard Owens. That's enough to move the chains.
You know, some of it is circumstance. The Jets are playing a softer defense. But any way you look at it, the raw data is going to say that he moved the club.
Inspired the crowd. And got some points on the board. First down. Short drop this time. That one's batted down at the line. Looks like Matt Chatham got a hand on that one. It'll be 2nd and 10 with 2:16 to play. Tavares Jackson, 10 out of 16, 141 yards and a touchdown. The first of his career.
Keep in mind the Vikings have all 3 of their timeouts remaining.
15-yard line, Travis Taylor. And we come up on 2 minutes to play. We've come to the 2-minute warning. 2 minutes to play at the Metrodome. Jets 26-13. Two minutes to play. Dan, you were watching the Jet defense. You said the 2-minute warning could not have come at a better time.
No, the defensive linemen expend a lot of energy chasing the quarterback, and the Jets defensive line was really sucking wind. And that 2-minute break they just got right there, much needed for the guys chasing the quarterback.
Vikings with all their timeouts remaining. Jackson throwing. Intercepted at the goal line. Intercepted at the goal line by David Barrett.
And that is just a case of David Barrett becoming the receiver. He fought for the space, he went for the football, and he out-battled the receiver for the football. This is how you take away the slant. You take away the slant by fighting right through the outside shoulder, and you have a right to the football as well. That is just absolutely perfect coverage by David Barrett.
Tavares Jackson, the first interception of his young career. And that brings the Metrodome crowd rising to its collective feet and heading for the exits.
Well, sometimes the defender just makes a really good play, and that's what Barrett did there. That's not a critical error by Tavares Jackson. Yeah, it ends up being an interception, but sometimes give the other guy credit. He's on scholarship too.
This is Cedric Houston. And the Vikings will burn a timeout, stop the clock with 1:50 to play.
Yeah, the Vikings are going to get the ball back. They'll get it one more time if the Jets don't get a first down.
Let's update the standings for you. In the AFC race, the Buffalo Bills have registered a victory over Miami, and New England beat Houston. Cincinnati still to play. Jacksonville going up against Tennessee and losing by a touchdown as we speak. Pittsburgh having no trouble on a visit to Carolina. Looks like they will improve to 7-7. And the Jets, should they hang on, will improve to 8-6.
Well, the AFC East still has not been clinched by New England, even though they moved to 10-4. They needed the Jets to lose today.
Jets not quite in the Christmas spirit.
No.
Second and 9 at the 21.
Houston and Askew in the backfield on 2nd and 10. This is Houston. The man who loves contact gets a little bit more. E.J. Henderson makes the stop, and the Vikings use their second timeout. 1:47 to play. That's pretty efficient. 3 seconds off the clock.
Well, Brad Childress has to be disappointed in the performance of his team in such a critical football game. This was a game that obviously both of these teams, it has almost equal importance, but the reality was you're playing at home, and to make the number of pre-snap penalties, those are the ones that, you know, you really just you lament those because they're needless. They're drive killers. They deflate your team a little bit. There's nothing worse than being the other 10 guys walking back to the huddle when one of you has jumped offside. In a game where you scratch and claw for every yard, to just put yourselves 5 yards farther back, it psychologically it drains you.
Third and 9. And Pennington's going to keep it. Comes around the left side and slides down at the 27-yard line. That'll be short of first down. And the punting unit will come on to kick it away. Chad Pennington, 29 of 39 for 339. And Lavernius Coles tying his career high with 12 catches.
Willie Parker once again with another game over the century mark with 132 for the Steelers today. But 29 completions and only 10 incomplete passes for Chad Pennington. That's an awfully productive afternoon.
Jets managed just 2 fourth-quarter first downs and 18 total yards, so they didn't really bury the Vikings here in the final period. Charles Gordon deep for the kick. Muffed it at the 26 and gets buried inside the 20. Wallace Wright, number 15, with the special teams play for the Jets.
Special teams tackle. That's where Minnesota begins, 1st and 10.
Welcome to those of you joining us here at the Metrodome. 1:31 to play in the fourth quarter. Greg Gumbel along with Dan Deerdorf. The New York Jets have turned in a convincing offensive display led by Chad Pennington today and lead the Vikings 26-13. And convincing is a good way to put it, Dan.
Convincing in every shape, manner, or form, especially considering that Minnesota forced a Pennington fumble and on their opening drive of the game took a 7-0 lead.
Tavares Jackson, the rookie, has replaced Brad Johnson, the veteran, at quarterback, and Jackson to Moore here across the 30 to the 31.
First down at the 32.
That's a first down, and now the Vikings are in hurry up. 1:15 to play. There's Brad Johnson on the sideline. Tavares Jackson going to take off and get nowhere. And once again, Dwayne Robertson, as he has been much of the day, right in the middle of the play for the Jet defense.
2nd and 9.
And again, keep in mind this Jets team was 4-12 a year ago. It's pretty hard to pat Eric Mangini on the back enough for how competitive he's got this team now.
Jackson with time. Now going to run. And runs for a first down across the 40 to the 43. A reminder coming up, the Subway postgame show. JB, Dan, Shannon, and Boomer will have all the latest NFL scores and highlights coming up on the Subway postgame show. Last 25 seconds. Minnesota out of timeouts. Jackson with the short pass, and Jermaine Wiggins across midfield and into Jet territory for another first down. But the clock continues to tick. And Jackson spikes the ball with 8 seconds to play.
Well, I think we're looking at the Vikings quarterback of the future, and you don't want to drop it all on the shoulders of Brad Johnson, but this moment was going to come sooner or later where Tavares Jackson became the man in Minnesota, and I think we're going to look at today and say that the era officially starts now.
Well, it was popular when he entered the game today, popular with the fans.
Right. And Brad's age works against him. He's 38 years old. It's his 15th year in the league, and he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback, but he's not going to be the Vikings quarterback 3 or 4 years from now. So if you're going to make the change, make the change.
The Jets used their last timeout.
30-second timeout.
And yet, with a loss here, the Vikings still mathematically alive in the NFC. The New York Jets very much alive in the AFC for the wild card.
And they get to close it out at home, the final game of the year against the Raiders. But next week, a trip to Miami to play the Dolphins. And I know the Dolphins got beat today, but that's a trip game. That's one of those things you look at the Dolphins' losing record and you say, well, geez, we'll just chalk up a W here. I'm not sure that'll be quite that easy.
Yeah, a few teams have done that mistakenly this year.
Miami defensively can make people look bad.
We find out now that Tennessee has just beaten the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Boy, and talk about a coaching job. How about what Jeff Fisher's done in Tennessee? And Vince Young, the legend, continues to grow.
The Jaguars fall to 8-6. The Jets about to improve to 8-6.
Well, we have one pass rusher. How about there is a unique formation.
Quick pass out to the side and the lateral. This is McMullen running out of bounds and stops the clock with a second to play.
I wonder if Dwayne Robertson, lined up there all by himself, really was feeling kind of manly about the whole thing. I'll take all of y'all. Check this out. I don't care if there's 6 of you. I'm feeling my oats today. Bring it on.
And if you're the offensive line coach, is can you block it? There he is, the lonely soldier out front. The Hail Mary for the end zone. Popped up in the air and falls incomplete.
Oh, Williamson had it for just a second.
26-13 Jets is the final score. For Dan Deerdorf, Greg Gumbel, so long from Minnesota. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Coming up, it's the Subway postgame show. We'll take you to New York for all of the scores and highlights from around the National Football League right after this.